our Miss Universe Cayman Islands 2025 is contestant number 1, Tahiti Seymour!
Hey pageant fans, stick around because we're going to be recapping all the details of the Miss Universe Cayman Islands 2025 pageant right after this. Hey pageant fans, welcome back to another episode of T-Stance on Pageantry, where we talk all things pageant related. I'm your host, Teresa. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new here, thanks for joining us. As you guys know, the Miss Universe Cayman Islands pageant took place on Saturday, August 9th at the Westin. First off, I got to the Westin at like 6:30 and the pageant was supposed to start at 7, and no surprise, it did not start on time. It didn't start until like 7:45 or 7:50, somewhere around there. And at that point, I knew we were going to be there for a really long time, despite the fact that it was only 4 contestants. So to that end, I really want to encourage the Miss Universe Cayman Islands committee to revamp the format of their show and to definitely look at ways that they can make the show shorter. And I think a big part of what would help our show to be a lot better is if we actually had an arena, guys. We do not have a proper arena filled with state-of-the-art equipment. I'm talking like an actual stage, like a proper stage with like LED screens, lighting, audio, proper backstage facilities, things like that. That would really help the production quality of our pageants go up. And I mean, an arena is such a great asset to any country because it's not just for pageants. Like you can have concerts there, conferences, I mean, church conventions, all manner of events can take place in an arena. So I just really hope that we can have one someday so that our pageants can be elevated. I mean, how amazing would it be if our hosts did not have to read off of a paper script or even an iPad, but they had a teleprompter. Another reason I think that our shows are so long is also because we don't really worry about timing it. It's not on TV, so we are not concerned with how long the show is. But just because it's not on TV doesn't mean we should disregard the length of the show. I definitely think that the show could be cut in certain areas. There's just so much that happens in the show that I think we didn't need. Now let's talk about the intros. Overall, I felt the intros were quite creative. The ladies seemed very confident, energetic. They had lots of personality, which I think is awesome way to start out the show. At times, I did feel like some of them were shouting, and that could be because some of them weren't standing very close to the microphone. Guys, get nice and close to the microphone so that you don't feel like you have to shout. There's a difference between shouting and projecting, and we don't need to shout. We just need to project. The microphone will do the rest, but you have to get close to it. It's not gonna bite you. I also saw a couple of ladies who were not standing, who were not like posing. They were just standing there. There was no T-stance. There was no power pose. Ladies, remember that at all times, T-stance, power pose, something interesting than just standing there. Now for the opening number. I didn't feel like this was particularly the most entertaining dance. Like I've seen other productions in the past of the Miss Universe Cayman Islands pageant where the dance has been really, really good. And this year I kind of felt like it was like missing something. And I think maybe they could have had other people on stage dancing with the girls just to kind of help to make it more lively and more fun and just more entertaining. Because I think with just the 4 girls there, it just felt a little bit like flat. Like I enjoyed it, but I'm just like, something is missing. They needed something more. And then the other thing that I want to know is that ladies, when you are in a pageant and you are dancing, remember that you are still a pageant girl. Do not get too carried away with the dancing. There was a couple of y'all up there who were dancing, and I get it. It's fun. You're enjoying yourself. But remember, keep it pageanty. Now let's get into the individual performances of the contestants. So here's what I thought about contestant number 1, Tahiti Seymour. I thought she looked great. She had loads of energy when she came out. I did feel, though, that her turns and her poses were too quick. Additionally, I felt like her performance overall was just a little bit too much for the Miss Universe stage. Like it was giving too much of a Miss Grand performance. So this is where you have to really know the pageant system that you're competing for. Miss Universe is not as showy as Miss Grand. Miss Grand values entertainment, so they allow their girls to do a lot more in that system. But with Miss Universe, it's a bit more composed, it's a bit more restrained of a walk. So I was quite surprised to see some of the things that she was doing on stage. And for me personally, I thought like she didn't need to do any of that because she looked stunning as is. And I would have much preferred her to maintain her composure, maybe do like one or two like really creative things on stage, but not as much as she did, because truthfully, she didn't need it. I also felt like her walk could have been a bit more fluid and that she needs to work on her footwork. Contestant number 2. She started out with a lot of great energy. She had a great smile on her face. She actually did give us a few changes in facial expressions. However, I felt like she didn't hold them long enough so that we could appreciate them, and the transitions between the facial expressions were quite fast. Another thing I noted is that she needs to work on walking heel to toe more, because I noticed that she started to walk quite flat-footed, and when you do that, it kind of gives you more of a stomping kind of walk. The other thing that I liked about her walk, though, is that she threw in a turn, which I thought was really well executed. And one thing that I would have changed about her overall styling is I wish that she added more body into her hair so that she could have more of a voluminous, bouncier, beachy look. Contestant number 4, Genesis Ryan. I thought she was radiant. She had loads of charisma and stage presence. However, I do feel like her performance was a little one note for me because she was all smiles all the time. And I think that any kind of performance that you're doing on stage needs to have variety in your delivery. And I would have wanted to see more sexiness, more attitude from her. I thought the walk was just okay. I did want her to slow down a bit. I think she was a bit excited and maybe even a bit nervous, so it was causing her to kind of speed up a bit more. And so she wasn't holding her poses as long as she probably should have. And I also felt like there was some tension in her shoulders, especially when she would place her hands on her waist. And something that I would change about her overall styling is her hairstyle, her half up, half down. I feel like that's a very teen look, and I wanted her to have a more mature look for Miss Universe. Contestant number 5. I thought she had loads of great energy. She looked confident. She looked like she was having fun, and that's always a plus, because if you look like you're having fun, then us as the audience and as the judges, we're going to enjoy your performance and we're going to have fun with you. So I thought she did a good job on that. She threw in a turn, and I felt like her turns needed some work. And I do think that her facial expressions as well as her footwork needed a bit more work as well. Now let's move on to the evening gown segment. So contestant number 1 came out in a beautiful yellow evening gown, which was designed by Rian Fernandez. And this gown was definitely inspired by the Cayman Islands national flower, the wild banana orchid. I thought she looked beautiful. She was sexy. She was glamorous. I just wish that when she was walking down the runway that she held out the gown a bit more so that she could really create that wind-blown moment where the fabric is just blowing behind her. I'm sure there's a reason why she couldn't like hold it up higher. I don't know if the bodice of the gown, because some of it did come down onto the skirt, so I don't know if the bodice of the gown was really preventing her from holding out that gown more and just really letting it blow behind her. But I really wish we could have gotten that moment from her. I also feel like her poses were just okay. However, there were a couple of moments in her performance where she did give us a little bit of a different kind of like facial, and I liked it. It was kind of like, yeah, I know I got this, and I really liked that. And I wish that we could have seen more facial expressions from her. Contestant number 2, Tiona Miller. I thought she looked beautiful in this green gown. I thought she had really good posture. I do think that she needs to hold her poses just a little bit longer. Ladies, when you're on stage, try not to rush anything. Take your time, take your moment to shine. I do think that she could have walked a tad bit faster. I know that it's evening gown. I know that we tend to slow things down in evening gown, but I just wanted her to walk a little bit faster in evening gown and give us a bit more hip action as well. I thought this was an incredibly gorgeous gown, very, very regal. And I just overall thought she is such a beauty on stage. I love, love, love that she did a reveal, and I wish the suspense could have been held a little bit longer. However, I did love the drama in her face when she dropped the skirt. I thought that was perfection. I loved the turn that and the pose that she did at the end of the runway. Very Pia Wurtzbach. Also, one thing I noted is that I wish her shoulders and arms were a bit more relaxed. She did seem to have a lot of tension in those shoulders, and in the arms felt quite stiff as she was holding her body. And I wish that she had exuded a bit more sexiness. That's something that I feel she just really needs to bring to her performance. But overall, I thought this was a pretty decent gown performance. Contestant number 5, Jillian McDonald. She wore a red evening gown, and I thought she looked gorgeous. She had a beautiful, infectious smile on. She did give us a little bit of hip action. However, I do think she could have given us a lot more. Her posture was pretty solid, but there were moments, especially at the back of the stage, where I felt like she was leaning back a little bit too much. I also felt like she needs to work on fully extending her legs and emphasizing that heel to toe movement. Now let's move on to the Q&A section. So the question this year was, what is the biggest issue facing your generation? So Tahiti talked about helping Indigenous Caymanians have opportunities to build generational wealth. For me, this answer started out kind of rocky. I felt like she said some things that didn't quite land, and she did stumble on some of her words, but she was able to turn it around towards the end, and I want to commend her for persevering, because that is what a queen does. In terms of delivery, I felt like she sounded and looked quite serious, and I would have loved for her to smile a bit more, because that would have brought a bit more energy and a bit more vibrancy to her delivery. Contestant number 2, Tiona Miller. For Tiona's answer, she said that she felt that mental health was the biggest issue facing her generation. I thought she answered the question at the very beginning. However, I do feel like some of her supporting statements felt a little bit disconnected, almost like she was off on a little bit of a tangent from the main topic of mental health. I think that for me, I was hoping that she was going to talk more about maybe ways that people can safeguard their mental health, especially since she mentioned social media, and maybe even share resources on island that people can turn to help them with their mental health. But overall, I feel like her delivery could have been improved if she smiled more, especially since she was delivering such a beautiful, beautiful answer. Contestant number 4, Genesis Ryan. For her, she said the biggest issue facing her generation was the disconnect between our elders and our culture, and that she wanted to see more programs implemented that would allow her generation to develop their roots and immerse themselves into our heritage. Overall, I really liked this answer. I thought it was very strong. Her supporting statements were on point, and I thought her delivery was really well done. Contestant number 5, Jillian McDonald. Now, she said that the biggest issue facing our generation is ourselves. She talks about how she wanted to see her generation do more together by doing more for the environment, signing up to vote, putting themselves in situations like entrepreneurship, doing more short courses, and overall just educating themselves more. She started with a very bold statement, and I was a little nervous because this could have gone left field. I was kind of like, where is she going with this? But I have to say her supporting statements were strong, and that it really came together well and was well received. The one thing I would change is that she was a bit serious in her delivery, and I wish that she just smiled more just to kind of lighten the mood, because this was a very good answer. Now, the results were as follows. Third runner-up went to contestant number 2, Tiona Miller. Second runner-up went to contestant number 5, Jillian McDonald. First runner-up went to contestant number 4, Genesis Ryan. And the winner of Miss Universe Cayman Islands 2025 was contestant number 1, Tahiti Seymour. Now, I'm not surprised by the results of the pageant. This played out kind of the way that I thought it would. It really came down to Genesis and Tahiti, and that's sort of how I saw it playing out from the very beginning. Now, I think it's really important that we understand what Miss Universe is looking for, what the brand of Miss Universe is. Miss Universe is sexy, she's glamorous, she's fierce, and I feel like on the night of, Tahiti really embodied all of those things. She did the best at aligning herself with the Miss Universe brand. And honestly, I was actually a little bit pleasantly surprised because in the weeks and months leading up to the pageant, Tahiti's styling and her vibe was very modest and slightly more sophisticated, which are not attributes that I would associate with Miss Universe. Those are actually attributes that I would associate with Miss World. So I was curious to see what she was going to bring to the stage. And so I was pleasantly surprised to see that she looked glamorous, she looked sexy, she looked the part. Now, when it comes to Genesis, I absolutely love Genesis. That girl has a great personality and she shines from within, and you can just see that. I truly enjoyed watching her compete in the pageant. However, I do think that Genesis is a bit more demure. She's a bit more softer, a bit more regal, and I feel like those are attributes that I would associate with Miss World. And I think for her, what would have helped is if she could have brought out more of that sexy, fierce side of her, right? And she's capable of doing it because we saw it in her swimsuit photo where she's wearing this black swimsuit and she was really giving us this fierce look. That's the look that I wanted to see on stage for her. I feel like if she had brought that out, it would have really elevated her performance so much more. All right, guys, I wanted to talk about the drama that ensued after the pageant. However, this episode is getting quite long, so I'm going to split it into 2 parts. So come back next week for part 2, where I share all my thoughts on the drama that happened after the pageant. You won't want to miss it.